Welcome to today's deep dive. If you've ever stopped to wonder who exactly the you inside your head really is, you are in the perfect place.
Yeah, you really are.
Today, we are bringing you a fascinating stack of sources that systematically deconstructs the very concept of the self. First, we have excerpts from the incredibly comprehensive book Buddhist Thought by Paul Williams and Anthony Tribe.
A foundational text.
Next, we are looking at a dense, brilliant translation of the 4th or 5th century philosopher Vasubandhu's critique of the soul. And that one is translated by Charles Goodman.
Right. And finally, to ground all of this ancient philosophy and how it's being studied right now today, we are pulling from an actual master's level course syllabus.
Yeah, the one on Nāgārjuna and Buddhist dialectics.
Exactly. From GCA's College Dublin, taught by Dr. Mario D'Amato. It is a phenomenal collection of texts.
It really is.
We're going to explore how ancient Indian thinkers radically broke down the idea of reality and personal identity. I mean, we're looking at a complete dismantling of the self.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we're going to discover why these ancient philosophical debates are entirely relevant to how you experience the world, your emotions, and your anxieties today.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got this incredible stack of sources looking at a radical shift in human thought. But to really understand the gravity of this shift, we have to look at what these ancient Indian thinkers were actually rebelling against.
Right, you have to set the stage. At the time, the dominant Brahmanical religion was all about cosmic permanence. It was a very top-down, heavily ritualistic society.
Right.
And the ultimate spiritual goal was to realize that your individual eternal soul, the Atman, was actually identical to the universal essence itself, Brahman.
Which is a beautiful thought, really.
It is.
The idea that I am the universe and that beneath all the chaos of everyday life, there is a permanent, unchanging core to my identity. But our sources highlight a massive counterculture movement that rejected this entirely. These were the Sramanas.
The dropouts. They were essentially the dropouts of ancient Indian society. They looked at that rigid, ritual-heavy, caste-based society and essentially said, this isn't solving fundamental human suffering.
Right. They just walked away.
They left the villages, they abandoned their social duties, and they went out into the forest to figure out the nature of the mind on their own terms.
And the historical Buddha was one of these dropouts. The traditional hagiography, the stories, say he grew up totally shielded from the harsh realities of the world.
Right, kept in a palace.
Yeah. But eventually he had a profound existential crisis when he witnessed old age, sickness, and death for the first time. He realized that all the wealth and all the Brahmanical rituals couldn't protect anyone from samsara.
That terrifying endless cycle of rebirth and re-death.
Exactly. So he left it all behind to find a way out.
What's fascinating here is how this movement fundamentally redefined what religion could even be. The Williams text points out something that, it surprises a lot of Western readers. Buddhism isn't an exclusive religion in the way we might think of some monotheistic traditions.
How so?
Well, a practicing Buddhist can completely believe in, and even pray to, local deities or Hindu gods for worldly favors.
Like what kind of favors?
Like passing an exam, bringing rain for crops, or curing an illness.
Wait, that seems like a massive contradiction.
It sounds like one, yeah.
If you are dedicating your life to ultimate spiritual liberation, why are you praying to a local deity for a good harvest?
Because the harvest is just worldly management. In the Buddhist framework, those gods are just part of the worldly cycle of samsara, too.
Oh, I see.
They are incredibly powerful, they live for eons, but they aren't enlightened. They are still subject to the same ultimate impermanence as us. They eventually die and are reborn.
That makes sense.
So religion, in the strict Buddhist sense we are exploring today, is only about ultimate liberation from that cycle. Everything else is just temporary problem solving.
So, if the gods can't save you from the cycle of suffering, what can? This is where the Buddha's approach looks less like a cosmic theology and more like a medical framework.
Yes, diagnosis.
He diagnosed the human condition. The symptom is dukkha, unfulfillment, imperfection, the constant underlying anxiety of impermanence. And the underlying cause of this illness is tresna, or a deep, unquenchable craving and thirst for things to be permanent. The ultimate cure is nirvana, literally the extinguishing of that craving. And the treatment plan to get there is a practical method of living and meditating, the Eightfold Path.
The Buddha shifted the focus entirely to psychology. Suffering isn't a punishment handed down by angry gods for failing to perform a sacrifice correctly.
Right, it's not a divine penalty.
No, it is a mental state caused by profound ignorance, or avidya. You suffer because you fundamentally misunderstand the nature of reality and your place in it. You think things are permanent when they are fleeting, and so you cling to them.
Which brings us to a story from these sources that perfectly captures how ruthlessly practical this early movement was. The parable of the poisoned arrow.
Oh, this is a great one.
There is this monk named Malinkuputta, and he is extremely frustrated with the Buddha's silence on major metaphysical questions. He essentially issues an ultimatum.
Right, demanding answers.
Yeah, demanding to know if the universe is eternal, if it's infinite, and what happens to a fully enlightened being after death.
Which are very familiar philosophical questions. These are the kinds of debates that ancient scholars, and modern ones for that matter, could spend lifetimes arguing over.
But the Buddha completely dismisses the questions. He tells the monk that he is like a man who has just been shot with a thickly poisoned arrow. His friends and family rush to get a surgeon, but the wounded man stops them.
He refuses treatment.
Right. He says, I refuse to let you take this arrow out or treat the wound until I know the caste of the man who shot me. I need to know his name, his family, the village he comes from, and whether the bow he used was made of a certain type of wood.
And of course, the man would succumb to the poison before he ever gathered all that trivia. The meaning here is a profound, almost aggressive pragmatism. The Buddha wasn't interested in armchair philosophy. The teachings are a targeted cure for fatal illness. If a specific line of questioning doesn't help you pull the poisoned arrow of suffering out of your chest, it is worse than useless. It's a fatal distraction.
That leads perfectly into another story involving a monk named Aritha, who wildly misunderstood the teachings and started clinging to them as dogma. The Buddha compares his own teachings, the Dharma, to a raft.
The raft parable.
Right. You use a raft to cross a dangerous, rushing river to reach the safety of the far shore, which is nirvana. But once you are safe, you don't pick up that heavy wooden raft and carry it around on your back for the rest of your journey. You let it go.
And this is where Dr. Diamato's GCAS syllabus on Nāgārjuna and Buddhist dialectics becomes so relevant to our discussion. The syllabus defines dialectic as critical examination.
Critical examination?
Yes, the teachings aren't a divine truth you worship. They are a psychological crowbar. They are designed to break apart your rigid views of the world.
Wait, let me challenge that for a second. We are so heavily wired as human beings to cling to ideologies. If I find a philosophy or a lifestyle that successfully cures my anxiety or gives me a sense of peace, my first instinct is to build a temple to it, write a book about it, argue with people on the internet about it, and make it my entire identity.
Which is exactly what this philosophy warns against. The moment you make the cure your permanent identity, you've just built a new ego.
You're carrying the raft on your back.
Exactly. You've taken a tool meant to dismantle attachment and turned it into an object of attachment. This raises an important question, though. If we are supposed to let go of absolutely everything, including the teachings, and if there is no permanent soul, what exactly is left? What is actually going on inside our heads?
Here's where it gets really interesting. To answer that, we have to look at Vasubandhu. We have this dense translation by Charles Goodman of the Abhidharma. Vasubandhu takes direct aim at the orthodox thinkers of his time, the Tirthikas.
The philosophers who were deeply invested in proving we have a permanent, eternal soul. Vasubandhu is a relentless logician. The stakes in this text are incredibly high for him. In his view, as long as you believe in a permanent soul, you will cling to it. You will constantly try to protect it, elevate it, and satisfy it. And as long as you're clinging to this illusion, you will suffer.
So the orthodox opponent in Vasubandhu's text throws down what seems like a bulletproof common sense argument. They say, look, every action depends on an agent. When a man named Devadatta walks down the street, there must be a walker doing the walking.
Right. An action requires an actor.
Exactly. Therefore, beneath the physical body, there must be a permanent soul driving the vehicle.
Vasubandhu counters that with radical reductionism. He says there is no agent pulling the levers behind the curtain. When Devadatta walks, it's just a continuum of physical and mental events arising in slightly different locations, moment by moment.
Moment by moment.
He compares it to the spread of a wildfire. When a fire spreads across a field, there isn't one solid fire object getting up and walking across the grass. It's a chain reaction of heat and fuel, cause and effect.
So it's kind of like the pixels on a screen.
Yes.
If you watch a video of a ball moving across a television monitor, there isn't actually a physical ball moving from the left side of the screen to the right. It's just individual stationary pixels flashing on and off in a highly coordinated sequence. But our brains stitch that sequence together and immediately say, there goes the ball.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Vasubandhu is saying Devadatta is the ball on the screen. It's an illusion of continuity. We give the sequence a name for convenience, but there is no underlying thing moving through time.
Wait, let me push back on that with a practical dilemma. If I'm just a series of momentary events, a new fire or a new pixel flash every single second, how do I remember my childhood? Who is doing the remembering if the me from 10 years ago is completely gone?
It's a brilliant question, and Vasubandhu addresses this through the concept of causal conditioning. You don't need a permanent soul to carry a memory. Think of a seed growing into a tree. The seed is completely destroyed in the process of becoming a sprout, which is destroyed becoming a sapling, which becomes a tree. The tree looks nothing like the seed, yet the genetic information was perfectly transferred through the causal chain.
Right. The information survives the transformation.
Exactly. Your memory is a transfer of information through a continuum of momentary mental states, much like a line of falling dominoes. The first domino doesn't travel to the end of the line, but it certainly causes the final domino to fall.
Vasubandhu actually has a great sense of humor about how unnecessary the soul is in all of this.
He really does.
The opponent tries to retreat and argue that maybe the soul doesn't do the physical walking, but it must work with the mind to produce cognition and memory. Vasubandhu completely dismisses this. He compares the concept of the soul to a quack doctor.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Imagine a real physician gives you medicine that is perfectly sufficient to cure your disease. Then a quack doctor walks into the room, waves his hands over you, recites some magic syllables like "fa," amen, and tries to take the credit for the cure.
It's absurd.
The medicine, the chain of cause and effect, did all the work. The soul is just the crack taking the credit.
It's a devastating analogy. And we need to clarify a crucial distinction these sources make between conventional reality and ultimate reality. Buddhists don't deny that you exist as a person in a conventional everyday sense. It's perfectly fine and necessary to say, I am walking or I am reading.
You still have to pay your taxes and answer to your name.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the philosophical problem arises when we take that conventional language and confuse it for ultimate reality. When we say, I am angry or I am sad, we are mistaking a temporary collection of phenomena for a permanent self.
The aggregates.
Yes, the Buddhist texts categorize human experience into 5 aggregates: physical form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. We look at this swirling, temporary bundle of aggregates, and we mistakenly label it me.
So what does this all mean for how the universe operates? If there is no central agent, if there is no soul carrying the weight of my actions, how does karma work? The whole idea of karma in ancient India was that our actions have inescapable consequences. If there's no me, who is experiencing those consequences?
This represents one of the most massive turning points in the history of human thought, heavily emphasized in the Williams text. Before this philosophical shift, in the Brahmanical context, karma was largely about physical, ritual action.
Like doing the sacrifice right.
Did you perform the sacrifice perfectly? Did you pronounce the syllables correctly? The Buddha completely redefined karma by shifting it entirely to intention or volition. He ethicized the universe. Karma became purely psychological.
It's not about the physical mechanics of the action at all. It's about the mental state behind it. The intent is what leaves the imprint.
And because the universe operates on strict cause and effect, an unwholesome intention, like acting out of deep malice or greed, is a psychological cause that will naturally produce a painful result in that same continuum of events.
Ah, I see.
You don't need a permanent soul to carry the karmic debt, just like the seed doesn't need a soul to ensure the tree produces a specific type of fruit. It is simply the nature of the developmental continuum.
Which brings us to a concept called dependent origination. This is the master formula for how this continuum works without a soul. It's an impersonal, law-like chain reaction.
A causal loop.
Yeah, the early texts break it down into 12 specific links, but the core formula is incredibly simple. This existing, that exists. This arising, that arises. It's a self-sustaining loop of ignorance leading to craving, craving leading to action, and action leading to rebirth.
And because it is an impersonal mechanical chain, it actually provides the exact mechanism for freedom. If you remove the cause, you automatically remove the effect.
You don't need divine intervention.
No. If you can completely uproot the very first link in the chain, ignorance about the nature of the self, the entire structure of suffering collapses on its own.
Let's pause on how they actually studied this, because this blew my mind when looking at the GCAS syllabus. To truly understand this chain of cause and effect, these ancient scholars developed the Abhidharma.
The higher teaching.
Right. If the Buddha's general discourses are the medical diagnosis, the Abhidharma is the microscopic cellular biology of reality. It is the ultimate mapping project of the human mind. They broke reality down into what they called dharmas.
And we should clarify, in this specific context, dharma doesn't mean the teachings.
Right. It means an irreducible momentary event.
This is the critical distinction between symbols and conceptual existence. Let's use an analogy to ground this. Think of a strawberry. Is a strawberry ultimately real?
You'd think so.
In the Abhidharma view, no. A strawberry is a conceptual existent. It's a convenient label we slap onto a collection of parts. A specific manifestation of redness, a moment of sweetness, a certain tactile shape, the presence of seeds.
Right.
If you mentally strip away the redness, the sweetness, and the shape, there is no underlying strawberryness left behind. The strawberry is just a concept.
So the Abhidharma project was about breaking absolutely everything, every thought, every physical object, every emotion down into its primary existence. They analyzed experience down to a single instance of solidity, or a specific flash of visual consciousness, or a momentary mental factor like concentration or agitation.
They're exhaustive about it.
Yeah, different analytical schools had different lists. Some, like the Theravada school, categorized 82 of these irreducible dharmas. Others, like the Sarvastivada, listed 75. But the goal was the same. They mapped the entire human experience into these fleeting, momentary blips.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just an ancient, obsessive cataloging exercise. This is the exact blueprint for psychological liberation. This is why this dense philosophy actually matters to you today. Insight meditation, often called vipassana, is the practice of calming the mind enough to actually observe these momentary dharmas arising and falling in real time.
But how does realizing that I am just a collection of flashes actually stop someone from suffering? If I'm having a panic attack, knowing that my panic is just a series of momentary blips doesn't sound very comforting.
It's deeply comforting when you realize that suffering requires a solid you to be victimized. It requires a solid object to fear or desire. If your mind is sharp enough to observe that the anxiety you are feeling isn't a massive permanent monster that has swallowed you whole, but is actually just a rapid sequence of tiny, isolated mental flashes, a moment of increased heart rate, a flash of a fearful image, a pulse of tension.
It loses its structural integrity. You can't be destroyed by a sequence of isolated flashes.
Precisely. You begin to experience your own mind and body not as a solid, permanent self under attack, but as a rapid sequence of events vanishing almost as soon as they appear. The texts compare these moments to a flash of lightning, or a bubble bursting on the surface of water. When you see this directly through critical examination, the illusion of the solid self completely dissolves. And when the illusion of the self dissolves, the craving that was desperately trying to protect and satisfy that self dissolves with it. The wildfire simply runs out of fuel.
Okay, let's recap this incredible journey. We started in ancient India looking at how dropouts from a rigid society completely redefined the spiritual path. They moved it away from cosmic rituals and turned it into a targeted psychological medical cure for the human condition, focusing entirely on dismantling our ignorance. We explored how brilliant logicians like Vasubandhu used razor-sharp reductionism to dismantle the illusion of the soul, proving that the Central Asian is as unnecessary as a quack doctor taking credit for a cure.
Right, the Fu Med doctor.
Exactly. We are just pixels on a screen, transferring information through cause and effect. And finally, we looked at how the Abhidharma mapped out the fundamental, momentary building blocks of human experience to help us break down our own suffering.
It is a radically different way of viewing existence. It demands that we stop taking our everyday assumptions about who we are for granted. We have to stop carrying the raft and start critically examining what is actually happening in our minds moment by moment.
And this is where it comes back to you, listening right now. This isn't just ancient history or abstract academic philosophy. This is a highly practical lens for viewing your own mind today. The next time you feel overwhelming anxiety or a burst of anger or deep, painful attachment to an outcome, try looking for the agent behind the feeling.
Look for the walker.
Right. Try to find the solid you that is supposedly angry. If you look closely enough, if you break the experience down into its primary components, you might not find a victim at all. You might just find a spreading fire of causes and effects, a fleeting sequence of physical and mental events, and realizing that it's all just passing flashes might just be the key to letting it go.
It really challenges everything we think we know about our own identity. We've learned today that according to these ancient texts, yourself is not a solid, unchanging soul. It is a constantly shifting continuum of momentary mental and physical events, much like a flame being passed from one candle to another.
The flame isn't the same, but the transfer is real.
Exactly. If that's true, and there is no permanent, unchanging you residing in your head, this raises an important question. Who exactly is it that has been listening to this deep dive for the last 15 minutes?